So now the next speaker, Ryan Carr, was interesting because I did some research on him, and who stole my book? The first thing was something like, on the article I was reading was, the aggressive Ryan Carr purchasing 250 square foot home, and I thought they must have missed a zero. 250 square feet, that's our walk-in washroom, right? Then I asked him, I said, how's that work? And I still don't get it. So I was pretty pumped about hearing what that's all about. So Ryan Carr is a full-time real estate investor from the Durham region. He specializes in unconventional real estate purchases, new construction concepts, flipping and coaching other to do the same. So he's a real estate coach as well as someone that's in the trenches doing it. I look forward to hearing this, Ryan. Come on up.
Thank you. Two waters, fist bump. All right. Is this the remote here?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right, what's up, you guys? Whoa. What's up, you guys? I'm Ryan Carr. Thanks so much for having me out. This is my second time that I've ever been to Ottawa, first time ever speaking at a convention such as this. Big round of applause for all of you guys today, as well as Mary Ann Gillespie. That was fantastic. Big round of applause for her. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about creative strategies for coach houses and tiny houses. Now, I'd like to think of myself as a technical investor. He had mentioned that, or AJ had mentioned that I'm from the Durham region, which is where I typically like to invest. So the projects that we're talking about are going to come directly from that playbook. In saying that, this is my disclaimer. Because it is a technical presentation, I am not a realtor, I am not a mortgage broker, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant. I always ask you guys to go get some professional advice before you go out of the trenches and get crazy with anything that I talk about today. Now, that being said, I do only speak about the things that I have done. This is very important to me. Theory is fantastic, but we actually have to take action, and we have to use the knowledge that we learn and go and apply it somewhere. Very important for you guys as well. Keep that in mind. Always consult professional advice. All right? Topics of discussion for today. So some quick housekeeping. We're going to talk about the coach house for about 15 to 20 minutes. We'll kick it off with that. This is a project that I've done, again, in Durham region. Really cool project, kind of came about by accident with the flip that kind of went sideways on us for a little while. After that, we're going to talk about the tiny house build. So like AJ had mentioned, the tiny house is a 253 square foot project that we took on. It came about by way of an MLS listing, which was kind of cool. I typically buy half private, half on the MLS, and I always sell on the MLS because we like to support our realtors. So this one, we're going to go through the technical side of the severance, and then I want to leave you guys with a little bit of Q&A at the end. Really important for me to make sure that you get as much value from the presentation as possible. Hopefully you guys have some questions. All right? Okay, one slide about me. The rest of the slides are about you guys. So who is Ryan Carr? Most of the people in this room I've actually never met before, so this is super cool. I started investing in 2012 in the Durham region. I am from a small town called Bowmanville, which is just outside of Toronto. I was a mechanic prior to 2012. I was fixing cars. I was building armored vehicles. None of these things have anything to do with real estate. So I went to college. I got licensed. I got my ticket. I did all these things. And then I realized, you know what? This isn't really for me. So while I was building these armored vehicles, I was flipping houses in my spare time. Okay, this was like a hobby for me. It was kind of cool. It was kind of fun. We were doing some basement apartments. We were doing some flips. Like, it was cool. It was exciting, right? It took me out of my 9-to-5 and gave me a little bit more purpose. That was really cool, up until the point that I got laid off from my full-time job. So like a lot of people that are getting into real estate and they think it's fun, but they can't make the switch to being a full-time investor, I got thrown into the gauntlet. It was like, bye-bye, out you go, no more mechanic, you got to make something of your life. So during that time, while I was flipping on the side, I'm like, okay, real estate's really the only other thing that I was good at. We made a few bucks at doing that. How about we go in and do some more work that way? So that's where I ended up. Today, I now have full-time staff. We've got construction crews. I've got an assistant. Her name is Melissa. She's been fantastic for me. We're getting into flips, multifamily, new development, all of these wonderful things. And over and above that, we're getting into coach houses and tiny houses. So something else that I want to drive home, and I got it up here on the slides, I am a firm believer in good deals are found, great deals are created. And as much as we were talking about tiny houses and coach houses and real estate and stuff like that today, this applies to your business life wherever you go, but in specific to real estate, anybody can go out and buy a good deal, right? The mechanics of what I want to talk about today are not just specific to these projects, but they're specific to real estate in general, because you got to go out, you got to dig, you got to find these deals, you got to create value, you need to manufacture value in order to really succeed, all right? Okay, so we're going to branch into the coach house. So for the first part, what is a coach house and why? This is like the dictionary.com vanilla description of what a coach house is. A small building, usually part of an estate, adjacent to a main house, typically used for housing equestrian, tack, and carriages. Okay, so you see on TV, you got these really cool homes. They got like this little guest house in the back. For anybody that's seen Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right, the pool house in the back that Will and Carlton lived in, you know? That was pretty cool. Other common names for a coach house, carriage house, granny flat, you know, even a tiny home in some capacity. Like, there's a ton of different concepts here. Accessory dwelling suite. Like, you can call them anything you want. You guys are very fortunate in Ottawa that you can actually build these as of right in a lot of places throughout town, which is super cool. I invest in a town called Oshawa, which is in Durham region, and we actually cannot build these as of right. So we're going to talk about some of the challenges that I had to go through and some of the challenges that you guys will face if you're looking to build one of these in a market that doesn't permit that. Okay? Something really cool about coach house living, accessory dwelling suites, things like that. Sound transfer, smell transfer, above grade living. Okay? For anybody that's into property management, we've got the property management folks at the back. Sound and smell are the two biggest things with property management that make tenants turn over. Like you got like one guy upstairs, he likes to cook fish. You got the other guy downstairs, he's working nights in a factory or something. Like, sound and smell are always the biggest challenge, right? And if we can make our tenants happier to live in the home that they're already in, if that's a coach house, they're not going to leave. They're going to pay better rent because they're living above grade. They're going to stick around longer. You're going to have a better tenant relationship. You're not going to have the issues with that person, right? There's a lot of really good benefits to doing coach house style living. Now, where are coach houses permitted? So every time I give this speech, I always add like an extra city or two cities as I meet people in the crowd. So far, Peterborough, Midland, Clarington, Markham, Toronto, Cobourg, and Ottawa are the only places that I've heard that we can actually do these as of right. So you guys are really, really fortunate here because you don't have to fight for things like this. I did a little bit of Googling before I came out, and these are getting more and more common. So has anybody in the room actually built a coach house before? All right. I could say anything today, and you guys will go. Okay, so really, really good opportunities for coach houses for anybody that is looking to do one. That's super cool. For anybody that can't do one, or you'd get a little bit of pushback from the city, right? Minor variance request is probably going to be your best opportunity to start with. Has anybody here ever applied for a minor variance for anything? Yeah? Okay, wicked. So minor variance, also known as the Committee of Adjustments. Nick, we know you've applied for like 1,000. So, also known as the Committee of Adjustments. You're basically going to your municipal officials, whoever that may be, and you're requesting permission for something that's not typically granted within the bylaw. Coach houses, 9 times out of 10, will fall within that. Again, in Ottawa, you guys are very lucky. This is one that I pulled in a town called Cornell. This is in Markham. I just grabbed this off Kijiji. You can see it's a detached garage structure with living quarters up above. This is a very common type of coach house, if you will. This one stands about, I think it's about 400 square feet, and it's currently renting for $1,375 plus utilities. It's pretty good, right? For like literally dead space in this guy's backyard, he's got a 2-car slip with some living quarters up above. He's making $1,400, right? Really, really good opportunity. Completely separated from the main house. So maybe you want to be, maybe you want to be the person living in the main house, but you don't want somebody living underneath you. That's a great opportunity to keep your lifestyle separate, but still have that extra income earning potential in the back. Okay, so we're going to get into some technical stuff. What do you do when the city says no? So the one that I built in Oshawa, I'm going to show you a quick picture of it here. This one's interesting because we've got a detached building on the left-hand side, we've got the existing house on the right-hand side, and we've got the connecting link in between. Now, the connecting link is what made this project work, okay? The city of Oshawa would not let me do anything related to a minor variance or rezoning to get a coach house permitted, but I wanted to do it anyways, and this is how I did it. So when the city says no, generally speaking, I will attach the coach house to the existing house, but just barely. Why do we do that? Okay, there's no DCs payable when we do something like an addition. When we add a basement apartment, for example, typically there's no DCs payable. For Ottawa, is there any development charges payable on anything other than new construction? Anybody? Anybody? Do you have to pay DCs on basement apartments, for example? No? Okay, cool. So that's really good. So when we're doing an addition, it falls under conventional zoning. Okay? When we fall under conventional zoning, because the people that work at these different government agencies that review your permits, like the building department, the zoning department, planning, right? They need to tick off their check boxes because they don't think like investors. So we have to make it easy for them to think like government officials, right? And they're great because they help us get what we want, but we need to make it easy for them. We need to do all the creative thinking ourselves. Okay? No DCs payable when we do something like this. Really important. Falls under conventional zoning as an addition. Okay, and when I'm doing the connection, and I'm going to show you guys an aerial view here in a sec on how the site plan looks, when we do the shortest possible common wall connection, I typically try to do it within a 3 to 4 foot wide wall range, and I'll show you exactly what I mean here. There's the two buildings, and this is the actual overhead of how we built the project. Okay, so we've got the existing structure on the right-hand side. Now, this home was here. This was the property that I purchased. I intended to do a flip with it. The challenge with that wasn't with my numbers or my math or my renovations. It was with the neighboring property. So I'll tell you a bit about the flip. As we were going through, I bought the property. We're doing the renovations. We're doing all the decorating. Everything was going great, but not everything was going to plan across the street. So there was an old factory that was across the street. Sat as a green field for years. I thought, great, nice looking pasture. What could possibly go wrong? 2 weeks before we went to list this house, the house that I was doing, backhoes move in, bulldozers move in. I'm like, okay, something's up, something's going on. Some rezoning signs go up on the main road. I'm like, oh. They start ripping up the foundation from this old factory. They're pulling out foundation. They're pulling out rebar. It looked like somebody took down a prison. So I'm looking out the kitchen window of the house we did, and there's a mountain, like literally a mountain of dirt, rebar, garbage, old machinery. Like, oh my God, it was horrible. So we couldn't list the property at that point, right? Buyers were coming in. They're going like, I don't want to live next to the dust. I don't want to live next to the dirt. What's going on over there? They were building like a 12-story condo or something, right? So it was never going to work. I was forced to hold the property. Like a lot of us know, single-family homes don't really carry, right, when they're being rented out, depending on what you pay for them. So I had two choices. One, take a loss, which I didn't want to do. Two, or three choices. Rent it as a single family for a little while until construction subsided, which it still hasn't subsided today. And three, get creative with the parcel that I had. Okay? Now this parcel here is actually a 40 by 140. So I had lots of depth, not a ton of frontage, but lots of depth. So I got to thinking, okay, what can I do with this property that's a little bit different than the norm, right? How can we think differently about what I'm working with? Because not only is the property a bit different in terms of layout, but it also only had a 5-foot basement. So I couldn't do a basement apartment. So for me, the coach house was born. We did an addition off the back. What you see here is what we had proposed to the city. They said, yeah, absolutely. You can't build a detached structure, but, you could connect it. So I'm like, okay, that's what we did. So we connected it with, it turned out by the time we were done to be about a 6-foot hallway because we added a utility room in there. But this is a really good way to get around some of the different municipal problems when trying to plan a coach house. Okay? This is the floor plan inside. So you can see the connecting link would be the entryway into the property. You make a hard left, and we're going into living room, kitchen, open concept space. 2 bedrooms at the back with the Jack and Jill bathroom in between. This is about 850 square feet. Okay? Again, the really important thing in that link, in order for us to get our permits, was the way that we connected it. So as we built the coach house, okay, we actually built it as a single-family home. In Oshawa, which is where I invest, you can't actually build an addition with a second suite in it without them charging you development charges. That sometimes runs $20,000 to $25,000, $30,000. which is a lot of dough, right? That would crush the project. So in this case, we had to build it as an addition. We had to leave the kitchen sink out. We had to close the permit. We had to then go back 1 day later, open the permit, put a kitchen sink in, then apply for accessory unit status. That's how you get around certain things like that. I suspect Ottawa could be the same way, but again, you got to talk to your planners to find out. That's a really good tip on how to save development charges if you run into that situation, okay? Couple pictures of us actually building the property. Has anybody in here done new construction? Just quick show of hands. Who's done some new construction? Maybe 20, 30% of the room? Okay, cool. So some pretty simple stuff here. Dig a big hole, fill it with concrete, build a house on top, right? You can see here we've poured the foundation. This is the perimeter to the property. It's a slab on grade, so there's no basement underneath it, which is kind of cool. No wet basements ever, which I'm a big fan of. Over here, this is when we boxed it out. We started framing it, 2x6 construction, all freshly insulated, modern wiring, modern building code, da-da-da-da-da, right? Over here, this is when when we got closed in, actually. So we're fully sheeted. The roof is on it, almost weather tight. We still had some windows to go. And again, this is actually something I did. We do some coaching and mentoring, and we did a coaching session in the house when the project was actually completed. So we did this like red carpet event. We did like cheese and wine and stuff. But I want to show you guys the finishes that I typically go to when we're doing a project like this, because something really important to drive home is that when you're building new, you've got the opportunity to go with nicer finishes without a huge extra cost, okay? The cost to put nice looking siding, like on the left side, you'll see we did like a vertical, like a dark khaki color board and batten. That turned out really, really well, and it complemented the existing house. We could have gone with like a really discount, like kind of like a shitty bargain product on the side of this building, but the cost to install that product is the same as putting up something that's nice and color coordinated, right? We did a nice resin stone up around the doorway with a full glass panel door. At this point, because we're all new construction, we're fully open. We can do anything that we want, right? You might as well add a little bit of character to it now while you have the chance, because tenants are going to appreciate it moving forward. You're going to reap the benefits of the cash flow. Okay? That's the coach house build. Any questions about the coach house build before we move on to the tiny house build with respect to zoning, construction, anything like that? Any questions? Yeah. Yep. Sound and smell transfer. So I wanted to have the effect of a coach house, right, as best as we could possibly get it in the area that I was investing. So because the door is way in, when you actually see it in the flesh for real, you walk in, it's this really neat little niche, right? It almost feels like it's your own house when you walk in that way. If we had have gone flush to the exterior of the building, and I'll pull it back. There, that picture. If we had have gone flush to the exterior of the building, that would have allowed more opportunity for sound to transfer into the next unit. I didn't want that. I wanted as much barrier as possible so that we kept everything completely separate. Okay, and in saying that, we do 2 furnaces, 2 water meters, 2 hydro meters. Everything is completely on its own.
No, I'm interested in back, but not how wide it is and how far back.
Yeah. That was for visuals and for curb appeal as you walk into the property. Okay? Anything else?
Did you sell it when you sold it? I presume you did.
I kept it.
Oh, you kept it?
I kept it, yeah.
Probably to the question was, did the new owner move into the back or the front?
I kept it, so I'm not sure. The rents are fantastic. What I can't tell you about the financials is the rents are really, really good. So that property previously rented for $1,550 in the front, $1,500 in the front. No, $1,550 in the front, with no accessory unit in the back. If we had have done a basement apartment, because it was a smaller footprint, I think we would have got like $800 or $900, which didn't really justify the cost of construction. For something like this, now that we've added the coach house in the back unit, we're getting $1,500 in the front, $1,550 in the front, $1,500 in the back. So now the property makes about $3,100 a month, as opposed to $2,500. Actually, something else is really cool. We were able to do all the construction while the front half of the house was rented, so we never had any vacancy. So all we had to do was go and put somebody in the back when we were done. Cool? All right, for the sake of time, Razna, hold that thought, we'll do it at the end.
Okay, sure.
Okay?
That's good.
What I'll do, I'll throw my phone number up at the end. If you guys have any questions about this stuff, you can send me a quick text. I'm happy to help. Okay? Okay. The tiny house project. So the tiny house, again, 253 square foot house. Like AJ wasn't lying. People have bathrooms bigger than this house. Seriously, it's super small. It's super cute. This property here, you can see we got a main house on the left, and then we got this like garage-looking thing in the back. This was the picture that I had seen when it came into my email, and I'm like, okay, just looks like your standard, 2-bed, 1-bath house, whatever, with the detached garage. But what was really unique about this project is that it had 2 municipal addresses. So we're going to get into that in a second. What is a tiny house and why? So the Wikipedia vanilla description. The tiny house movement, also known as the small house movement, is an architectural and social movement that advocates living simply in small homes. Okay? Now, what I want to drive home about this presentation today related to the tiny houses, I'm referring to houses that are actual real houses on foundations with a tax roll number, municipally serviced, like a fully permanent home. Okay? There's a lot of different ways that we can do tiny houses. On trailers, Winnebagos on pieces of land. What we're talking about today is like real deal house. Okay? Benefits of the tiny house. This is strictly a cost play for a lot of people that want to live with less. Okay? The CEO of IKEA came out a couple years ago and he said, people don't want stuff anymore. People don't want stuff. And this guy is in the stuff business, right? That's all they sell. There's trinkets and plates and cutlery and like all this stuff, right? That's all they do. And he says people don't want stuff anymore. So the tiny house movement is definitely out there for those who want it, okay? Lower cost of living, maintenance, overhead, and utilities. So again, to do a roof on a tiny house, you might be like $1,000. To do a roof on like a mini mansion, you could be 10 G's, right? So for the people that want to live simply, they want to go lower on their cost of living, they want to maybe have more experiences in their lifestyle as opposed to being debt poor on their home, this is for them. Okay, I want to get into some economic perspectives and some challenges with the tiny house living concept. So as trendy and as cool and as fun as they are, and they're out there in the market, and people think like, why can't we just have like 500 tiny homes in a subdivision somewhere? The economics can dictate otherwise. So we're going to break that down for you guys. We're going to see exactly why there's some challenges with that, and then we're also going to talk about how we can actually make it work. Okay? I'm glad that there's some government officials in the room. There was some people asking earlier about, how do the tiny houses actually work? How can you put them on parcels, things like this? We're going to talk about that. We're going to uncover the truth. Okay? Conventional zoning often restricts minimum footprint. So where I invest, you can't build anything smaller than 400 square feet. Does anybody know the minimum for Ottawa? Anybody? Nick, do you know what the minimum house you can build in Ottawa is? Minimum square footage? No? Okay. So it's probably somewhere higher than 400 square feet. Okay? The challenge with building something smaller than 400 square feet is you got all these other costs that are the same, whether you build 200 square feet or 22,000 square feet. The costs are the same. Okay? We're going to break that down right here. Who's got a calculator on their phone? Your phones are out. Who's got a calculator? Can you help me out? Okay. We're going to talk about utility service and costs. Pull out the calculator app, one of my favorite apps. Okay, utility service and cost. For a single family home, you could be somewhere in the range of $15,000 to $20,000. So let's say $20,000. The land cost. Who knows what a piece of vacant land is worth in Ottawa? We'll say like in a bedroom community on the outlying outskirts, if you can get it. A couple hundred G's? 250? Okay. Add 250. The legal expenses to transact that, 1.5% closing costs. Add $5,000. The development charges payable. From what I understand, in Ottawa, they're about $37,000 per unit. So we're going to add $37,000 of that total as well. If we're going to flip that tiny house, we're also going to have realtor commissions, somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $15,000. Let's add $15,000. You're going to have HST. There's an HST input credit, but you're going to have an HST consequence at some point. We're going to add $10,000. We're going to have carrying costs to build this tiny house. That could be somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $20,000. Let's say $15,000. So now we've built the house. Oh no, we haven't even built the house. To actually build the house, we got to bricks and sticks, right? You could be somewhere between $75,000 and $125,000 to build that building. Let's say $75,000. What's our subtotal for building a tiny house in town?
I believe it's 222 right now.
222? Can't be. The land cost? $472,000 to build a tiny house. Who's going to live in 300 square feet for like 500 Gs? Nobody. right? Nobody's going to do that. That is the problem with tiny houses. As cool and as trendy and as fun as they are, the economics don't line up, okay? So how do we make them work? This is going to be a trickle-down effect using government subsidy. Typically speaking, it's got to start from the top and work its way down to the investor. Investors aren't going to take this project on because it can't make money, right? It has to be a government initiative. It has to be subsidized. It has to come from the top, and it's got to work its way down. Very, very important. So for any city councilors here that want to see this stuff, you got to push for rezoning applications. You got to push for development charge rebates. You got to push for things that are going to help the builders allow the consumer to actually afford these products. Like, you got to get the cost way down. Nobody's going to live in this for $400,000 to $500,000 bucks. Okay, really important. We got to allow multiple dwellings on one parcel. So what do I mean by this? If we have land costs of $200,000 to $250,000 bucks, okay, when we break that down, if you can put 2 tiny houses on one parcel, we just shaved $100,000 bucks off the purchase price. If we can service the property with 1 water and 1 sewer connection that's maybe upsized a little bit and service both houses off of that, we've just cut our servicing costs in half. So we've shaved $100,000 bucks off of our land. We've shaved $7,500 bucks off of our servicing. If we can use development charges payable to the parcel of land as opposed to per the dwelling, we've shaved maybe $10,000 or $15,000 bucks off of that as well. So as we start to deduct these costs and deduct these fees back, tiny houses can become more and more viable. Now, the only opportunity otherwise in rural areas is basically building trailer parks. Okay, so the term trailer park seems like a dirty word and things like this. It's not a dirty word. It's just not trendy yet. Okay, so for anybody that's heard of like vacation trailers on lakes where they've got a big, 50-acre parcel of land, and there's lots of trailers there, and people are enjoying the waterfront, but they're living in essentially mobile homes, this is the opportunity for tiny homes to come in and come back to the forefront of the market. All right, so the tiny house that I actually built. We're going to get technical again. I want to show you guys how I did this one. This came by way of a severance. This was a parcel of land that actually had 2 houses on it, one being the tiny house, one being the main house here. You see that big white dwelling on the left. I've highlighted in the bottom for you guys the real driver behind how this whole thing works. So note, property has 2 municipal addresses, 96 and 98 Quebec Street. It also has 2 separate water and sewer bills. So I saw this when it came through. What really sparked my mind was that it was a 72 by 122 lot. For me, as a builder, I'm thinking, okay, I can cut that lot in half. I can build 2 homes. Now, the challenge with this, and I didn't know up front, but the challenge with this was that it was in a conservation area. So I actually couldn't sever the lot. So where a lot of builders would leave that, I dug a little bit deeper and did some detective work. I'm trying to think, okay, what is my highest and best use for this property? How can we be creative with it? Good deals are found, great deals are created. How can I create value from this? Okay, this is exactly how we did it. So again, here's the parcel itself. You got the tiny house on the right, you got the main house on the left. The tiny house on the right was something that was really cool. It was going to be like a trendy, neat project to take on. The house on the left was just a straight flip. Just go in, clean it up, sever the land, sell that one off. Here it is on Street View. This was back from 2009. Part of my archive research, I had to go back and make sure that this house did actually exist, like from days and days and days gone by. I wanted to make sure that A, there was somebody living in it, which there was. I'll show you guys a picture. It's pretty funny. That there was somebody living in it, and that it had been established for quite a while. Here's the backyard. Again, you got the main house on the right, you got the tiny house on the left. You can see the second roof peak on there. That was actually an addition at one time. So, like the main house, I think it was like 200 square feet, and then they put on like this great big 53 square foot addition that housed a bathroom. I don't know if it was like an outhouse or something that they connected, but it was pretty funny. So this was the inside of the tiny house. So this was cool for me. I like to do fix and flips. I like to take things and make them cool and fun and on point. So inside this house, I went in for the tour. I was with my realtor. Went in for the tour, and it was like super shitty, right? They got like all this glue up the wall. I don't know if there was a backsplash there before. On the right side, you got like this old crunchy bathroom. And the house was actually so small that I couldn't get a full-size photo of any of the rooms, right? Because like, it just doesn't pan that far. The tenant that was there, he was holding up his bed sheet, which was his curtains, with a fork that was stuck in the trim. Like, this was the kind of house that this was, right? So after I did the tour, and I went through, and I saw that we could fix it up. I saw that we had two living structures, so to speak. Here, this guy was an interesting character that lived in the tiny house. I went and I did a little bit of detective work. Okay, This is where I was able to find value in this property. What you guys see here is an aerial shot from a zoning map. In Oshawa, we've got this zoning map tool. It's interactive. It's almost like a digital survey where you can go over it. It's called the GIS. Do you guys have that here in Ottawa? Yeah? Oh, yeah? Okay, cool. So in Oshawa, we have that also. And this is what I pulled up. So you can see we got 96 Quebec on the right. We got 98 Quebec on the left, but no part line in between. So at some point throughout the period of history, and we dated this house back to somewhere in around the 1940s based on the newspapers that we pulled from the floorboards. Somewhere along the road, somebody had owned both parcels. They converted it. They did something with the property. Titles had merged. They probably bought them in their own, like bought them in the same name, so they merged together, right? The part line had disappeared. So I'm like, oh, geez, what am I going to do? I can't sever. I can't put the part line back as of request because we're in municipal, like, it's called CLOCA, it's a Conservation Area Authority. We're in here. They won't give anything to us. They won't allow any part lines to be removed or put back. Or, like, we can't do anything. I'm landlocked. What am I going to do? So I did a little bit more digging. I went down to the land registry office. Okay, you guys will have a land registry office here. They're province-wide. I was looking up, what you see here is a plan of subdivision. Okay, I was looking up, what was this before versus what is it now? Okay, so you can see in the yellow, that was one of the original parcels. It was lot 14. In the orange, that was also an original parcel. That was lot 13. So I'm like, okay, something's changed. Something's happened over the years. I got to go into this one more layer. And I did. I took it to my lawyer and I said, what do you see with this parcel that I don't see? Right? Help me out. Let's find the opportunity. This is a really cool project. I want to take it on. Other people are saying, no, we don't want to touch it. I'm not interested. And he says, okay, well, let's check out title. So we checked out title, and the way the title was written was such that we could actually put the part line back between these two lots as of right on closing day. And that's exactly what we did. When I bought the property, I took title in two separate corporations. Anybody ever bought a parcel of land adjacent to another parcel of land and had titles merged or had to be concerned about that? Yeah, a couple guys? Okay, so something really important. If you buy, I'm Ryan Carr, if I bought this parcel in Ryan Carr's name and I bought that parcel in Ryan Carr's name, those titles would merge, right? Big time challenge. So write that down. You got to put it in two separate parcels to make sure that doesn't happen. So on closing day, that's exactly what I did. We took title in two separate parcels. I now had one main house on the left side, and I had a tiny house that was fully serviced, ready to go, development charges paid, standalone home on its own piece of land. 253 square feet of beauty. This is inside the tiny house. So we've got the technical perspectives on it. I want to show you guys a little bit about the floor plan. Okay, inside the tiny house, we walk in on the right-hand side. We got the living bedroom area. On the bottom, we added some bay windows. We had to add some natural light, add some space, make it function again, right? Because the trend on tiny houses, like you have to have all these unique space-saving like gizmos and stuff like that. The bay window doubles as a seat because there's really nowhere to sit, right? You got your bed in there. You got to have it like a futon or something, right? That's where they're going to be. We built some cool TV niches and stuff like that. We got the kitchen in the center of the building. Okay, we've done some really cool things in there. We got wall-mounted heaters because there's no furnace per se. There's no room for a furnace, so everything is in the wall, right? Wall-mounted heater, wall-mounted AC. We've got ladders that service a loft up top that kind of slide across like Willy Wonka, right? They're pretty cool. And then up top in the back, we got the existing bathroom where the addition was built. Okay, this bathroom was there. We did have to go in and add laundry. Something really cool about the laundry, right? Because we are going to sell this house. Buyer's going to want to have laundry. That's important. We didn't have space for a full set of stackables. So I called around, and I found a washer dryer that was an all-in-one unit. It's this little cube, right? It'll run the wash load. It'll spit the wash load water out, and then it'll flip over to a dry cycle. But the unique thing about this is that it's ventless. So I think they may use them in RVs. I think they may use them in other applications, but it actually dehumidifies the water in the drum and pumps it out the drain, right? No heat. Really cool. Energy savings. Everything's all LED, stuff like that. Okay, this is the front elevation of the property. You can see the loft space up top. That was really cool. The property always had a loft, but it was completely underutilized. So again, we got to open it up. We got to make it trendy. We got to make it cool. We got to make it function for a buyer. They needed a little bit more space up top. We had to give it to them in that respect. This is what the tiny house looks like now. So you remember the old white, kind of crunchy-looking siding? Again, we used a nice resin stone on the facade of this building. All new deck on the right-hand side. A little bit of landscaping throughout the front. right? We had to go for a minor variance request on this for parking. The interesting thing about this particular property is that even though the structure was always here, like forever and a day, I still had to make some minor variance requests for certain things, lot lines and blah, 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 right? We were very fortunate. They did grant it to us, but it was a struggle to get through it because of the Conservation Authority, right? So that's what we look like today. We had the city council come out. That's the mayor there in the middle. That's some city councilors on the right. They presented me with this plaque, right? That was kind of cool, saying like Oshawa's tiniest home. And to the best of, obviously, right? To the best of my knowledge, this will be the smallest house to ever hit the MLS. Ever. So we're pretty excited because we don't know exactly what it's going to sell for yet. But when it does, keep you guys in the loop. This is a picture of the inside. So again, we got the mayor and the mayor's assistant there. That's one of my mentor students in the back. The loft up top, again, all LED lighting. We've got some cool pipe fitting decor. Top right, open concept shelving. You know, some shaker style cabinets, like just real basic finishes, but nice and bright. We keep it white, keep it open, all open concept stuff. Again, on the bottom right side, we've got 24-inch appliances. Anybody ever seen the 24-inch stove? It's like an easy bake oven. It's so small. 24-inch stove, 24-inch fridge, barn door, right? We don't have any room to swing a door. It has to slide, things like that. So super cool project. Really, really excited to be doing it. And again, we'll keep you guys in the loop when it sells, because I'm pretty curious myself. I want to branch into some Q&A now. For anybody that has questions about the tiny house or the coach house project. Tony, how are we for time? 8 minutes?
8 minutes.
Okay, so we'll take a few questions. My phone number's on the bottom. If anybody has any questions about any of the things we're doing, send me a quick text. Happy to help out. And thank you guys so much for having me.
Anybody have questions? Awesome. All right. I'm going to run around the room with the microphone. Here we go. Question number 1.
All right.
Would you mind discussing the costs at all?
Yeah, absolutely. On which?
Both of them, actually.
On both? Sure. Thanks. So for the consumer to build a coach house, that was about 850 square feet. I think they would realistically be in the 150 to 200 range to put up that building. There's a lot of other things that need to be factored into. It's not just the cost of the structure. It's the landscaping and the parking and the permits and the HST consequence and things like this. But that's pretty much where you're going to fall. Typical timeline for something like that, you could expect a couple months of planning, some bouncing the permits back and forth, and then maybe, we'll say 6 months to get the structure up and built and move-in ready. Okay. On the tiny house, it was more of a retrofit. So for us to put that lot back the way that we wanted it, wasn't overly expensive. I think it was like $3,000-4,000. The renovation on that one, I think we were like $40,000 on it because again, it was like we had to do a lot of work because it was really crunchy. But like, you know, the structure was already there, which is why we were allowed to have it grandfathered in. So we're maybe something like that. But the cool thing about that was that, like, I paid $350 for the main structure, which we saw in the MLS agreement. Consequently, I turned around and I sold that main house for $350,000 6 months later after we flipped it. So I basically ended up with a building lot with a tiny house on it for free. Okay, does that help? Cool. Got one back here. Yep.
Hey, great job, Ryan.
Thanks, man.
Do you see an opportunity for factory-built coach houses, sort of for that first option, where you're connecting it to the main house? Do you think that could be a financially viable option?
Factory build like prefab?
Yeah, prefab, but done in the same manner that you've done with the coach house, which is the connection.
Connecting it? Yeah.
Yeah, which is essentially to get around the loophole of a coach house, right?
I do. So I mean, like at the end of the day, whether you build the structure on site or you have it shipped in, like somebody else is talking about shipping container homes later on today, which is super cool. Whether you bring it in or you build it on site, the opportunity is still there. So that's more a matter of zoning as opposed to construction. Yes, I think you could absolutely do that. As long as you link the foundations, you're probably in good shape. Does that help?
Anybody else?
Cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
hold on, Christian.
That's like the voice of God back there. 1 minute.
So now Tony is the voice of God. That scares me a little bit. But I was just going to add, in the Ottawa area, more out towards Carleton Place, there is a company that does build tiny homes. Like they do them in the factory and then they just deliver them.
Awesome.
right? So makes it even easier for people in Ottawa who want to be able to do that.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's cool. Now, for that company, are they plopping them on their own lots, or are they more of a coach house build where you've got an existing parcel?
You have to have the parcel of land,
Yep.
right? So in Ottawa, you can typically add, as you mentioned, you can add a coach house on a single-family lot.
Yep.
So what these guys are doing is they're building the tiny home itself, and then they can deliver it and literally just get it installed on the property.
That's awesome. There's some wicked opportunities with respect to floating in a small house. Like it's the size of a shed. At the end of like they're small, right? Just plop it in your backyard, dig the hole, dig the foundation, service it. You probably have to connect the services to the existing dwelling in order to make sure that it's not considered its own lot, right? To get the permits for that. But like the opportunities are there, and especially for people who are in the baby boomer generation, maybe you want to have a caregiver suite. Or you've got kids that are going away to college and you want something for when they come back so they don't impact your lifestyle. Or you know what I mean? Maybe you just want like that accessory unit to subsidize some of your costs of living because you like to travel and you want to have somebody at the property to look after snowplow. Like there's so many opportunities out there for coach house living, tiny house living, prefab stuff like that. I mean, I think it's fantastic, for sure.
Okay, we got another question back here.
Yep.
I know Ottawa had a proposed micro condo complex, and there was some real concerns and issues around financing for a certain amount of square footage.
Yes.
Is that something that could potentially be a hindrance to tiny houses?
100%. So for the tiny houses that are permanent structures, with respect to square footage, I think it's a little bit less invasive than we think with single-family homes. I contacted CIBC, and they didn't have a minimum square footage requirement. So financing is out there, but yeah, like when you get into super small condos and stuff, some lenders say like, you know what, I don't want to do that. There's not enough leverage, I guess, to collect on if it's so small. I'm not sure what their reasoning is, but yeah, there's some lenders out there that won't touch them, and there's some that take it on like anything else, as long as it appraises.
Oh, got one more. Cool. Time for one more, AJ?
All right, last one.
Okay.
Thank you. I was just wondering about the coach house.
Yeah.
When you were going to list the house, what were you going to list it at?
I never was.
You never were?
I never was.
What was the value of it
The value
after, like, post-renovation?
So I'm still waiting for my appraisal to come back. Right now that we have tenants in, I just finished that in December. So I'm still waiting for my appraisal. But like,
Expect to get back here.
yeah, I would expect that it would appraise comparable to, we'll say, like a bungalow with a nice basement apartment, somewhere in there. And if we get any upside lift, I think that's amazing. I think the biggest thing to realize, though, when we're thinking creatively about deals, right, is like I was able to buy that house cheaper than anything else on the market because it had a 5-foot basement. Right? So yeah, you might have paid a little bit more to put the structure up as opposed to putting in a second unit down bottom, right? But when you're able to buy properties that other investors aren't looking for, that's where the opportunity comes from. Now I'm getting better rents than a basement apartment, right? It'll be a balance, it'll be a trade-off. Does that help answer your question? Yeah? Yeah? Cool, thank you.
And remember, we're going to have a Q&A at the end of the day. Ryan will be part of that. So if you have any more questions or you think of anything else, definitely can ping on him at that time.
It's always funny. Is this working? Hello. Hello.
Talking to mine.
So yeah, he's got the height, so we're good. I always laugh when Tony and Sue say, "Is it okay, AJ? It's not my show. I'm hired help here. I get free coffee all day. I'm good." So thank you, Ryan. That was excellent. The quote that give a round of applause here.
Thanks, guys. Thank
And if you're not taking notes, if you don't have a notepad, Tony and Sue have notepads. I know we have a bunch of notepads here. Write it on your napkins. Great quote from Ryan. Good deals are found. Great deals are created. I thought that alone, I'm going to go home with something very valuable. So on behalf of Tony and Sue, we'd like to give you this. It's a gift card for a tiny home. And thank you very much. That was excellent.